Hi everyone, my name is Rimeike and I'm co-founder of Quantum Cybersecurity Skills. We have a fantastic guest, Aidan McLaughlin, and he's our first guest in Series 3 SOC Superposition interviews. We're going to be talking with Aidan today about asset inventory, big data parsing for alerts, for alerting, and also incident response readiness. How do you protect your organization not only from the threats of today, but also evolving quantum related threats? So Aidan, I'm passing this over to you.
Yeah, so brief introduction. For those that don't know me, I'm Aidan McLaughlin. I've worked within the SIM engineering team in financial services for the past roughly 3.25 years. Our job really has been to manage all aspects of the security operations tooling side and stuff. So I have quite a good experience across a few different topics, especially within security engineering. So yeah, like Emma said, we're going to be covering asset inventory and knowledge of self, which is quite a relevant topic just now. Big data parsing for alerting, which is also a very comfortable topic for me. And incident response readiness. So we're just going to be looking at basically what the type of threats IR and SOC teams are facing right now, how they are best placed to cope with them, and then should they have one eye on the future with the likes of quantum just around the corner.
Let's start. So let's pick any topic. We're gonna make 3 short videos to cover each topic in a separate video, just for everyone's convenience. Yeah. Let's choose any topic.
Okay, well, I guess we could start with asset inventory, knowledge of self. So I think asset inventory is a pretty standard concept. It's fairly easy. It exists out with cybersecurity quite comfortably, and I think businesses are very well aware of the need to perform good asset inventory. But I think the asset inventory for security purposes is sometimes lost a little bit. Asset inventory for billing or for financial management is very clear because it has quite an evident bottom line. But you sometimes fail to make the connection when a security incident, for example, happens on a server that potentially you didn't know you had running, or you have some configuration that you didn't really know how out of date it was, or an application that you didn't know was running and didn't patch. So asset inventory, I think, especially with the increase in volume of attacks that organizations have been facing since, really the start of COVID was the big uptick. I think people are really starting to see that this is an area that really needs tackled, especially coming from IR and SOC. A lot of the response to incidents is sort of, looking around for who owns this server, whose responsibility is patching this, like, do we know anything about this, what its purpose is? Because sometimes as well, you're quite hesitant to perform very drastic incident response actions like, completely quarantining a server, potentially if it has ties to a critical business process. And if that purpose of the server and, the ownership and everything around it is not clearly identified via a very good asset register, then you have the potential to get lost in there a little bit. I think from my experience as well, cloud is making this a little bit easier because of the sort of ease of use and accessibility of the management consoles. It's very easy to see how many VMs you guys have running in your organization, how many Kubernetes clusters, how many databases, and it's quite easy to see from there, a full holistic picture of the organization's footprint in cloud. But again, as well, it's not fully configured for setting up ownership and stuff of resources as well. So whose responsibility is it to patch this system is still on the business to decide that. So I think that's a little bit of an issue that's causing some IR and SOC teams a little bit of headaches just now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Aidan. You are talking, or we are singing from the same, how do you call it, hymn sheets, or anyway, it's
Yeah.
exactly what we are seeing when we are engaged with the SOC teams. Very often the conversation is about asset. One of the other elements, SOCs are not really sure what's their mission, what are they protecting, what's the impact, where are the assets located, and if assets are compromised, as I say, what is the impact to business in terms of business continuity, in terms of business agility as well, and so on. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. And again, those are very basic things. It's not like, we are not building the rocket here. It's hygiene, one of those hygiene things, right, that often get missed. So talk to me about a little bit, what has worked in your overall experience. What tactics, what would you recommend to your cybersecurity peers, hey, in terms of asset management? I found, this strategy is delivering great results. So just, your opinion on this.
I think especially for large organizations with a number of configurations, I think there's probably no escaping the fact that you require some automation in there. For large large organizations, that have hundreds of thousands of servers, millions of custom configurations, probably thousands of applications running on their network at any time. I think you need some automation in there to take away the human aspect of the asset register. I don't think we should really rely on individual business areas to be updating their asset register, because their view is never going to be on security. It's obviously going to be on their day job. How can my application provide the most value? How can we be the most cost efficient, etc.? But not how can we be the most easy to respond to, or how can we be the most visible from a security point of view. That's not really baked into the delivery process at the moment, and it's probably a little bit unreasonable to expect that as well. So I think using automation and sort of network tools, as well as automation and reaching out for information, automatically, periodically recertifying configuration items as well, I think is very important, because a lot of people may just leave this unchecked because it isn't a priority for delivery or business sort of management teams. So I think definitely the introduction of automation, but ultimately upstream, you need to have really good definitions as well. I think the most important part of an asset register is defining what exactly your business thinks an asset is. Is it a server? Is it a physical item? Is it a configuration? Is it an application? How far down the ladder of IP do you start labeling stuff as, right, okay, this is an asset and we need protections for it? So probably best to just define your assets first and then use automation to collect as much data on them as possible. It's probably the two sort of items in one strategy, I think, that I can think of as the best. Probably aggregation as well as a good part. You really don't want to have multiple systems containing different data on an asset registry. You need to have one centralized source of asset information, and that can just plug directly into your SIM tools. It can be queried directly by SOC and IR, and escalation routes can be clearly visible through that. I think centralization and aggregation of your asset inventory, if you combine all those three, and you don't really need to do too much more than that, I think that's probably the makings of a pretty decent asset inventory strategy. And then just building upon that with your own bespoke business needs.
Yeah, well, I mean, our team is very passionate about embedding continuous improvement in every cybersecurity related strategy processes, you know. So it's again, talking about asset management, it's not I've done it and I should forget it. You know, there has to be a clarity how often you need to rerun asset management, you know, just to pick up either new technology or applications and so on. One of the other advice is there is like often like a link that's missing. So we are talking about assets from technology point of view, you know, but linking the data, as in, you know, what data is stored on the assets, as I say, impacting when certain assets go down, you know, in terms of data, how in terms of PII, you know, how this affects and so on. But again, like again with other customers, same as driving cybersecurity culture, it's not enough just doing things once and then forgetting. It's all about continuously and consistently managing it, driving it. You know, magic doesn't happen if you do things just once, you know. So yeah, anything to add on this, Aidan?
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly off from the technology asset inventory thing, but I think it's very important that we consider people as assets as well, not just our technology, our servers, our configurations, because people ultimately are assets. But from a security point of view, people represent an attack footprint, and the vast majority of attacks come through people at some point. So I think it's good to have asset inventory for your servers and your configurations baked into your security alerting tools. But I think it's very important as well to first consider people as assets, but also look to see, okay, where are these assets behaving unusually? And I think that's when user behavior analytics comes in. And, you know, we'll touch a little bit more when we talk about big data, because you need a lot of big data for UBA. But I think UBA is important as well, because creating a baseline of how assets are behaving, even if they are, you know, people assets, creating that baseline and then monitoring for deviations is very important. But definitely think that people being the biggest attack footprint that an organization has, is important that they are captured as assets as well.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Thank you for covering this. Unless we would like to extend this conversation, let's jump on another video, okay? Yep. And let's cover big data for alerting purposes, okay? Good, thanks. We're gonna see you shortly.